Good evening and a very warm welcome to Front Page only on the AIM network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. It's been a very heavy few days. Missiles in the sky, servers going dark, jobs, contracts and entire businesses models thrown into question. If it feels like everything is moving at once, that's because it is. Here are the headlines. Hours after a federal ban, US Central Command utilized Anthropic's Claude AI to identify targets, assess intelligence, and simulate battle scenarios during massive, lethal strikes against Iranian military infrastructure. Iranian drones hit AWS facility in Dubai, disrupting regional services. AZMEC-1 AZ-2 is offline after objects sparked fires. Military dual-use allegations transform cloud infrastructure into the newest kinetic war front. OpenAI secures $110 billion from Amazon, Nvidia, and SoftBank, hitting of $840 billion valuation. The deal pivots OpenAI frontier to AWS exclusivity, locking in a 2 gigawatts of power for the AGI arms race. OpenAI's classified military contract triggers a viral #cancel ChatGPT revolt. Rival Anthropic capitalizes on the backlash, launching a seamless import memory tool to poach millions of subscribers who are defecting ChatGPT. Apple initiates a massive hardware rollout today, debuting the iPhone 17e and M5 powered Macs. CEO Tim Cook's big week targets younger markets with a higher performance, budget-friendly AI ecosystem. A rogue AI assistant built by an Austrian indie developer just outstarred React on GitHub. While Meta hosts conferences, OpenClaw ships 90-plus daily updates. The agent era has begun. As missiles shut Gulf airspace, India's IT giants TCS, Infosys and Wipro suspend all regional travel, activating emergency protocols to protect thousands of staff while crucial AI and digital oil field contracts hang in the balance. We are standing on the edge of something that feels uncomfortably familiar. In the 1940s, code-breaking decided the fate of nations. At Bletchley Park, Alan Turing and an army of mathematicians cracked Enigma, and in doing so, shortened a world war. Now, of course, reports suggest Claude was used in Operation Epic Fury. Different century, different machines, but once again, intelligence, this time the artificial kind, is edging closer to the battlefield. The ink isn't even dry. The commander-in-chief signs the order. Anthropic is banned from federal systems, labeled a national security threat, a supply chain risk. The instruction is absolute. Remove them completely. Not because of what they've done, but because of what they could become. But then, of course, hours later in the Middle East, missiles slammed into Iran. And the engine behind the targeting? Anthropic's Claude AI. Still running inside United States Central Command systems even after the ban. You of course read that right. The White House had just ordered federal use of the technology halted, calling it a national security risk. Yes, as the bombs fell, the very same AI was plugged into battlefield planning and target analysis. Different orders, different outcomes, different war. But the contradiction is now part of the story. Anthropic built its brand on constitutional AI. Strict safety guardrails. CEO Dario Amodei looked at the Pentagon's wish list and said, no. No mass domestic surveillance or, for that matter, fully autonomous killer robots. The government fired back. They slapped a domestic Anthropic with the exact same label they use for foreign adversaries like Huawei. It is established that the military cannot function without the code. The Pentagon actually demanded a 6-month delay on the ban. It is, of course, evident that if Claude is unplugged today, the operational matrix is bound to be crippled tomorrow. So how exactly does a language model run a war? Well, by feeding it to the battlefield. Raw satellite feeds intercepted radio chatter, decades of tactical history. It consumes the data. Then, of course, we move on to target identification. The military fed Claude petabytes of unstructured data, intercepted Persian language radio chatter, signal intelligence, and human intelligence reports. Intelligence assessments, and then, of course, Claude connects the dots across a terabyte of noise to find the exact signal. Then, of course, comes the battle simulations. Commanders use Claude to run course of action, which is COA simulations. The implementation, this likely involved a retrieval augmented generation RAG setup connected to a digital twin of the battlefield. It is, of course, truly mind-bending on how it plays millions of versions of the strike before even a single fighter jet leaves the tarmac. This, of course, is not a general who is hunched over maps in a war room, but a machine running thousands of scenarios in seconds. It calculates the collateral damage. It predicts the exact counterpunch from Tehran. Claude also identified the strike targets in Iran. It simulated the battle scenarios. It even helped plan the highly classified extractions of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. The United States military utilized Anthropic's Claude AI to coordinate strikes in Iran and capture Nicolas Maduro, all while President Trump officially banned the startup as a supply chain risk. The clash ignited over Anthropic's refusal to remove safety guardrails for unrestricted warfare. But then, of course, the ban backfired into a massive Streisand effect. Claude just rocketed to #1 on the application store, fueled by a surge of public support for its constitutional AI stance. CEO Dario Amodei remains defiant, declaring the company will survive without government contracts. It's actually the ultimate narrative war. Pentagon firepower versus Silicon Valley ethics. And here, of course, is, ladies and gentlemen, the front page take. We are reporting on a weekend that changed history. Operation Epic Fury has leveled the landscape. The data is sobering. Hundreds are confirmed dead across the region. Reports indicate at least 150 lives which are lost in a single strike on a girls' school in southern Iran. Extremely unfortunate. 3 US service members have been killed in action. Iranian supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is dead. We at Front Page are deeply sorry for the loss of life. But of course, we have to face the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. War has changed and it will not change back. Enigma helped leaders understand the enemy. This time around, the machine helped shape the strike. From choosing targets to running battle simulations, the artificial system was part of the process. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a public acknowledgement and a step into AI-assisted warfare. This is Front Page by the AIM Network. As always, think AI, think AIM. The cloud just took a direct hit. March 1st, 4:30 a.m., the United Arab Emirates. An AWS facility, MEC1AZ2, goes dark. In a region where data is meant to be always on, one of 3 local centers falls silent. And suddenly, one realizes that the outage was not due to a technical fault, but a result of geopolitical reasons. AWS has confirmed objects struck the site. Sparks? Fire? The UAE Fire Department cut the power to the entire building. Backup generators? Not functioning. AWS uses objects struck as a euphemism to describe the missile damage. For months on the AIM network, our experts have warned that this would happen. And today, this turns into a reality. They, of course, told us data centers are the biggest targets of the next war. The context is total war. US and Israeli strikes hit Tehran. Supreme leader Khamenei is reportedly dead. Iran retaliated with a swarm of drones and missiles across the Gulf. The Jerusalem Post reports this specific AWS facility was a dual-use asset for the Israeli military. If true, the line between civilian tech and a military target just evaporated. Was this hit intentional? That's the question. Maybe. Was it collateral damage? How does it matter? The new era of war has actually begun. The aftermath is immediate. The ripple effect is massive. With MEC1, AZ2 offline, local banking applications in Dubai are stuttering. Transaction latencies are spiking across the Gulf. Logistics at the Jebel Ali port, already under fire by the way, are now facing digital gridlock. So if your data was single zone in that very facility, it's gone until the smoke clears. AWS says other zones are up, but the traffic migration is choking the remaining pipes. AWS, Microsoft, and Google are all clustered in this same corridor. The safe hub thesis is dead and gone. Dubai and Abu Dhabi were chosen for stability. This stability ended on a Saturday morning. Jebel Ali port hit, Abu Dhabi airport struck, the Burj Al Arab area is in the crosshairs. The markets are frozen. The UAE recalled its ambassador from Tehran. The diplomacy is definitely over. The vocabulary gap, as we can see, is quite real. AWS says objects, we of course say bombing. Redundancy held because other zones stayed up. But the premise is broken. Geography is no longer a business decision. It is actually a wartime calculation. The cloud is on the ground and it's taking fire. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe. And as always, think AI, think AIM. And just as a disclaimer, we are not very clear if it was clearly a bombing. $110 billion in fresh capital. OpenAI's valuation climbs to $840 billion. Wow. A company which has actually begun to resemble a digital nation with a treasury to match. Amazon steps forward with $50 billion, $15 billion now, $35 billion later. And the question isn't the size of the check, but what comes attached. The new OpenAI Frontier platform is an AWS exclusive. A $100 billion cloud commitment over 8 years. The so-called winner of the cloud wars has just changed. Microsoft's monopoly is definitely over. Infrastructure is becoming the real measure of power. OpenAI has secured 2 gigawatts of electricity. That's the kind of energy, actually, you would expect from a mid-sized country, not a single technology company. They, of course, are running on Amazon's Trainium chips and are tapping 5 gigawatts of NVIDIA's Vera Rubin architecture. NVIDIA put $30 billion back into the company. That's a closed loop. NVIDIA sells the chip, OpenAI buys the compute, NVIDIA funds the growth. So you can see, right? Finally, the house always wins. SoftBank adds another $30 billion. Masayoshi Son is betting on stateful AI. The trillion-dollar dream rests on usage. 900 million weekly active users, 50 million paid consumer subscribers. That is a massive retail moat. But of course, the real battle is in the office. 9 million paying business users. Codex has tripled to 1.6 million developers. AI, as you can see, is no longer a plaything. It is actually the new entry-level workforce. And for the 2030 demographic who's watching, the message is clear. Learn the tools or fall to the wayside. For a moment, of course, let us analyze the narrative. OpenAI calls Microsoft central. But of course, they just gave the frontier keys to Amazon. It's like a high-stakes cloud triangle. Azure has the legacy, AWS has the new stateful runtime. This runtime allows AI to remember long-term context, continuous memory. It's launching on Amazon Bedrock. OpenAI is playing the giants against each other. Capital is no longer the constraint. Compute is actually the constraint. So what does this mean for all of us? This, I believe, is the final boss of private rounds. Analysts expect an IPO by late 2026. Sam Altman has the cash, the chips, and has the users. The goal is AGI. The path is industrial scale infrastructure. Now, the question is it a bubble? Maybe. But it's an $840 billion bubble with 2 gigawatts of power. The race for the future is officially now become an arms race. Please stay sharp, stay tuned, and this, as always, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and as always, think AI, think AIM. 900 million weekly active users, 50 million paid consumer subscribers. That is the scale of the empire OpenAI built. But today, that very empire is facing a massive backlash. The hashtag #CancelChatGPT is dominating the conversations. Users are posting receipts of their cancelled subscriptions. The catalyst? The Department of War. OpenAI has signed the dotted line, classified networks, direct military integration. And for Gen Z and the younger millennials, the ultimate safety company just morphed into a defense contractor. And their collective reaction is to exit the chat. Having said that, now, of course, I would like to draw your attention to Anthropic, the creators of Claude. So when the Pentagon knocked on their door first, Anthropic decided to slam that very door shut. They held strong on two red lines: no mass domestic surveillance and no fully autonomous weapons. The government's response to this was very severe, labeling Anthropic as a supply chain risk, the exact same tag they slapped on Huawei. But for the users on Reddit, that very designation has become pure street credit, because Anthropic sees the moral high ground, and in doing so, they have managed to hit OpenAI's funding base, its users. As we of course have mentioned earlier, the government banned Anthropic. The president called them a national security threat. And then, just hours later, the United States military launched joint strikes on Iran and used Claude for achieving those launches, utilizing Claude for intelligence assessments, target identification, battle simulations. The Pentagon made an attempt to pull the plug, but they failed because Claude is already deeply embedded in the war room via Palantir. It requires a 6-month phase-out just to untangle the code. The US state publicly branded Anthropic as a threat, while secretly relying on the company's technology to run the battlefield. Meanwhile, Anthropic wants a massive share of those 50 million paid subscribers base. And to do so, they have announced the ultimate breakup tool: import memory. With it, all one needs to do is to take your ChatGPT data, your prompts, your customized style, and import it directly to Claude in just one click, without any friction. The results have been instant. Claude has dethroned ChatGPT and hit #1 on the App Store. But popularity is only a part of the story, because when we look closely at OpenAI's actual contract, we realize why Sam Altman calls this a de-escalation. He claims they took the deal to stop the government from completely seizing the technology. So OpenAI kept their veto power. The military deployment is cloud only. No AI on the edge, no AI inside the actual drones. What OpenAI is doing is that they are placing cleared, forward deployed engineers inside the war room as safety marshals. And here, of course, as always, is the front page take. So if the government crosses a line, OpenAI holds a legal kill switch, the right to pull its systems offline. This, we believe, is turning into a battle for the very soul of Silicon Valley, because one company chose principle and paid a price. I, of course, meant Anthropic, while the other chose participation and secured a seat at the table. Well, Anthropic may be winning, that's the optics, but OpenAI is embedding itself inside the machinery of the state. So when you pay your $20 a month, it is worth asking, what exactly are you funding? And where does that intelligence flow next? This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Tim Cook is playing for keeps. 3 days, 3 cities, one carefully choreographed moment. They're calling it the Big Week. New York, London, Shanghai. Apple Incorporated, with this endeavor, is shaping a story across time zones, markets, across headlines, apart from, of course, unveiling its product lineup. The focus is younger buyers, new price points, fewer barriers at the door, which also, by the way, indicates that the budget wall is lowering. But then, of course, we wonder if this is a genuine shift in who the technology is for, or simply a polished spectacle designed to make the old feel new again. Let's start with the iPhone 17e. This is no longer the stripped-down option in the corner. The old budget design has been retired. The notch is gone. The dynamic island takes its place. The price remains $599, roughly 59,900 rupees. And inside is the A19 chip, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and beneath it all, Apple's own C1X modem, a signal that more of the phone now belongs to Apple itself. Because this is Apple actually designing the part that connects you to the network. No external supplier, fewer shared components, more control kept in-house. On paper, it's a budget phone with top-tier performance. But there is, of course, a trade-off. The more Apple builds itself, the harder it becomes to step outside of its world. The iPads, of course, are not too far behind. The base model gets A18. The Air moves to M4 power. And the Mini, finally, an OLED screen for the champion of the handheld devices. Then, of course, we have the Mac. The M5 generation is officially alive and kicking. Pro and Max chips are reserved for the heavy hitters. And as for the MacBook Air is concerned, it's sporting the new N1 chip. Wireless speeds that actually keep up. No more lag, no more excuses. Translating into a clean sweep of the desk. Now, of course, for what really matters. The leaked roadmap for late 2026. Remember when Steve Jobs dismissed touchscreen laptops as ergonomically terrible? Apple may be about to rethink one of its most firmly held beliefs. And if the leaks are to be believed, a touchscreen MacBook Pro is going to make its debut. The line between Mac and iPad is beginning to fade. It's a sharp change in direction. And yes, of course, there's more. A MacBook under 13 inches, which is not powered by a traditional laptop chip, instead by the same silicon found in the iPhone, which of course puts it squarely in Chromebook territory. Apple is gunning after the classroom, which is the actual prize. The emerging markets are only a part of the plan. The goal for Apple is to reach students early and keep them inside the Mac world long after graduation. And here, of course, as always, is the front page take. Well, the harder truth, we should not get distracted by the brushed aluminum or the thinner screens. Instead, let us spend a moment to understand Apple's strategy. Every chip, A18, A19, M4, M5, is designed with the same priority: intelligence that runs on the device itself. Apple wants our information to stay on our device and not travel back and forth to remote data centers. The company defines it as privacy, but the critiques see it as a business advantage measured in billions. More of the work is definitely done directly on the device itself, and more of what we do stays inside Apple's system. So actually, we're not simply buying a laptop, but actually are buying into a system that keeps everything tightly integrated. And the real contest is for our trust and our habits. Apple is betting that privacy is worth paying for. But the question is whether the price of entry feels justified. Please do let us know in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. OpenClaw just did the impossible. They passed React on GitHub stars. Yes, you heard that right. The library that literally powers half the web just got eclipsed by a lobster, a personal AI assistant built by one very obsessed Austrian, fueled by a digital army of crustacean enthusiasts. I love that line. It's David versus Goliath, except David has claws and he's winning. The lobsters, as we now of course like to call them, shipped 90 changes. Yes, 90 updates. React is the tool, OpenClaw is the one using it, and the market is moving on from software you operate to systems that operate on your behalf. But you know what? Let's wait. Let us recalibrate for a second. GitHub stars are the ultimate vanity metric. They don't equal users and equal revenue. The so-called winner is a project named after seafood, which brings me to ask you this. Can you build a banking application on a lobster? Meta's tech is the foundation of the internet. OpenClaw is a flashy penthouse built on top of it. It's an energy shift for sure. But is it a tech shift? Think about that. The hype is definitely 10 out of 10. But the stability, that's the real question worth asking. And here, of course, is the front page take. So what does this mean for you? If you're in your 20s and writing code, this hits very close to home. It's not just a bunch of people on the internet with a cool name. It's actually developers like you, working alongside AI systems that can write, test, and ship code at speed. While companies are still scheduling interviews, these teams are already pushing updates. And that, my friends, changes what being job ready even means. So what do you need? Not a big name degree on your wall, but you need something you can point to and say, you know what? I built that. Learn to code used to be the safe advice. Now, of course, it's more about how you work with these systems, how you prompt them, steer them, catch their mistakes, and move faster because of them. The software is definitely not going anywhere. But the way you sit in the driver's seat, that's changing. So here's the honest question. Are you going to figure it out early or watch others do it first? Please do let us know in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Missiles are flying across the Middle East. Airspace is shutting down. Governments are on edge. And thousands of Indian technology workers are caught in the middle of it all. From TCS to Infosys to Wipro, India's IT giants are activating emergency protocols, suspending travel, issuing advisories, and preparing for escalation. The region has very quickly changed from being a growth market to a ticking risk map. On Front Page today, we ask, how exposed is India's technology foundations to a widening war? And helping us understand that better is our senior tech journalist, Bala, and the author of this latest story, which is featured on the Analytics India magazine. Welcome to Front Page, Bala. Hi. It's a true pleasure having you with us.
Thank you so much.
Unfortunate times right now. It has suddenly broken out, and I believe the focus of our discussion today is definitely about the IT industry and their expansion in the region. Yeah. So let's just start with this, Bala. I want to understand this. Do you believe that this is a temporary disruption, or do you see this as a structural risk for the Indian IT companies if this conflict escalates?
Okay. Before I start answering your question, I will just tell the audience that the companies have asked people not to venture out and stay in safe spaces and avoid non-essential travels and follow the local guidelines. So that is one thing I wanted to convey to the audience.
Very important.
And so coming to the question you asked, I think it's not a structural bottleneck for any Indian IT companies, but it can, because it's Indian IT has a distributed delivery model. So if there's any conflict that is happening there, they can do all the work from elsewhere, either in India or any other global hubs. So that will not be a trouble for Indian IT companies. The main disruption may happen when there is a telecommunication network disruption. That could be, and there's any infrastructure damage because of the missiles or something like that. Until then, I think Indian IT companies are safe.
Okay. So essentially, there is no such huge risk as such as of right now.
Also, if you see the reason why Indian IT companies have their presence in Middle East countries, it's because they want the proximity with the clients. They want to comply with the government, the local government. So these are major reasons why they have a presence there. It's not that these regions are the backbone of Indian IT companies.
Fair enough. Point understood. But that actually makes me wonder about this, Bala, which I wanted to follow up with you on. Indian IT companies have obviously seen the region as a growth market for some time now, correct?
Yeah.
Do you feel that maybe in their eagerness to expand in the region, they might not have, viewed the geopolitical risk or maybe underestimated it at any given point in time?
Underestimation, I don't think so, because Indian IT is seeing Middle East country as a growth engine.
Yeah.
So they are increasing their presence in the Middle East region, and they are partnering with several local players, and the government is also offering so much of support. And if you see, India, like Infosys has won some award, like Pinnacle Award for its offerings in banking sector. So if you see, it's not an underestimation, because AI is everywhere.
Agreed.
Like it's cutting across geographies, across verticals, and across spaces. I don't think
especially the Middle East is investing a lot.
Is investing
Bala.
a lot. Yeah, they are investing huge money into AI. So I don't think it's
any underestimation.
It's not
It's just an unfortunate
incident.
breakout, which I guess nobody could have predicted.
Expected. Yeah.
How do the companies handle corporate, for example, the structure or the systems in place?
Okay.
See, because it's an escalation in terms of war. I mean, it's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
How would the companies be dealing with, for example, their own employees? As you started the show, and thank you for that, for giving directives that the company has given already to their employees. But how do they deal with the volatility of this entire situation?
Yeah. When it comes to Indian IT companies, they're not working in silos. The Indian government is like supporting them because they consider Indian IT as a sunshine industry. So they are like hand-holding, and the government is working closely with Indian IT companies. And also, if you see the latest NASSCOM report, it has crossed the 3 billion mark,
right.
300 billion mark. So that is the size of industry. And if you see the latest budget, the government has announced safe harbor options to the Indian IT firms. So collectively, if you see, I think this volatility will be handled together with the Indian government, as well as, together.
And also probably the government, which is on the other side.
Exactly, yeah. Though there is again bilateral ties with the Middle East countries, so we have a very close cooperation with the Middle East countries. So through all it's a collective effort during a crisis. I think everybody will chip in.
Have you had any conversations, Bala, with for example, the IT firms, executives here?
Yeah.
And if you've been able to maybe gotten some information, some insights which you could share with us?
Yeah, today when I was writing this report is when I contacted the companies. Like, they have officially issued certain statements, like, to their employees not to venture out, as I told in the beginning of the show. So not to venture out, and especially Infosys is coordinating with airline companies to ensure wherever their employees are stuck in between in the Middle East region, they are giving constant updates. So this is the kind of coordination they are doing during this crisis.
Tell me this, if the war, which we are of course all praying, carries on for some more time, what kind of an impact will it have on, for example, the global companies? Because things will get at some level or the other disrupted, right?
Okay.
So how do you feel that will impact India's position as a reliable
service provider?
Yeah.
So presently this crisis is, there are several players who are trying to bring truce between these countries. That is one thing. If that something works out there, I think this will come to an end, or there'll be some kind of ceasefire. So that is one thing.
Praying for that.
Yeah, so we are all hoping for that. And Indian IT, as I told you earlier, like, they have a very distributed delivery models. So they can function from anywhere, they're not completely reliant on the Middle East region. Sure. And also, Middle East is just a growth engine. It's growing towards a better
understood
this thing. So that is not the place where Indian IT companies are getting their revenues, all these things. It's an emerging market. So I think they will handle it.
Won't have so much of an impact as far as our position,
not so much of an
our
impact.
credibility as far as
not credibility. Yeah, like
that won't get affected.
Yeah,
right?
it won't affect as much as Anthropic is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Finally, Bala, what do you have to say to as far as all the viewers right now watching, based on what your report was, based on all of the discussions that you've had, whilst coming up with this very in-depth report that you have put out in the magazine? What's that final takeaway that you would probably like to share with the audience? If
Final takeaway would be to stay safe until the geopolitical situations get better. That, as an individual, I would request everybody to stay safe indoors, and follow the local protocols. Rest is not in our hand. Like, it depends on several other factors. So as an individual, as an employee, as a human being, we just can handle whatever is in our control. Yeah.
Wonderfully said, Bala. Thank you so much for being on Front Page.
Thank you.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Our senior tech journalist, Bala, I believe has definitely summed it up perfectly. These are, of course, very dynamic times, unfortunately dynamic times. Things are escalating. Things seem to be all moving in place, which we don't understand completely. But all we can do is to stay safe, is to ensure that our families are safe. And I believe communication with our families and our loved ones back home is most important, because that kind of anxiety is sometimes a little difficult to overcome. So all we need to do is ensure that our methodology is maintained, and the fact that we need to follow all of the local diktats and the guidelines which have been provided. And we are really hoping and praying that we ensure that our understanding remains with all of the people out there. From Front Page, we are hoping that the war and all the escalation actually comes to a standstill as quickly as possible. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.